Now we're trying. It's good. So
Looks
much,
like, yeah,
so much suspense. Yeah, we'll see if it works or not. All right, TBD. So let me do some introductions. Welcome to our, I thought it was third, but our second public workshop where we go through what we do, weekly release and triage, working off the project boards. And I'm David Price. I'm on the core team with Redwood JS, and this is Dom. He's also on the core team of Redwood JS, and Dom is our weekly release master. We try to get releases out from Redwood on a weekly basis. And we're experimenting here because we want to help the community at large with Redwood, the greater community of contributors. We want to help people get started on issues and tasks and PRs that could move the needle for the project. But it's really hard to find what to work on often. And that's why we wanted to open this process up that we're already doing weekly to the community at large, record this and share it on YouTube so people could come back and see what issues are important right now and could use some help. And we'll even try to help people get started right now. So for those of you that have joined the Zoom meeting itself, no need to jump on with audio or video, although you're welcome to. We'll be watching the chat as well. But as we go, we'd love to help answer your questions about specific issues that we highlight. If you want to possibly take that on, have those assigned to you, or just even help us out with the next step on those. So we'll get to that a bit later on, but feel free just to listen in. But we'd love to have you join in whatever ways, comfortable for the context you're in. Dom, any other thoughts as we get started for introduction?
No, I think you nailed it. Yeah, Dom on core team. David used to do releases pre V1 up to leading up to V1, and then I've been doing it since. But it's a fairly simple process. And yeah, we got a major coming out or in the works that'll be in RC soon. So the process has been a little different, but we'll highlight those differences, and we're still always obviously happy to have any contributions.
Dom, one thing I wanted to start out with is where are we at now? So current release cycle, what's happened in the last, well, I guess it's month. We think on a weekly interval, but let's do an update of what happened in the last month, just to catch people up and what's going to come in the next week or so. And I mean, I could take that too, but want to hand off to you because you're working on the next things. So yeah, sorry to put you on the spot on that, but what's happened and what will happen?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we normally like to get releases out every week just because we have a lot of dependency upgrades, but this time everyone in the Node.js ecosystem decided to drop support for Node 12. I mean, it kind of happens in a domino effect where once someone does it, everyone who depends on that dependency has to, and so it cascades all the way up to us at this point, and then we have to release a major when we do that. That's, even though it often doesn't have a lot of we use Babel, so the whole point is you can write code for you're writing code on Node 16, Node 18, using features that are stage 4 in ECMAScript. So code probably won't break, but just being honest, we are changing the target, so that requires another major. So it's been the past month has just been it's kind of we're releasing a major, so we had these other things that we want to get in as well that just we're waiting for a major to come up, and they're not major breaking features to the project, but they're cool new things like cell pre-rendering and parametering pre-rendering routes with parameters, and then you can configure the Fastify instance now in the API server, so it's cool features. But in the next after this major release, we'll kind of re-architect the way we merge code so that we can keep releasing minors even if we have breaking changes in a branch. That'll probably just keep our velocity, but that's the reason this month has been a month of just one release so far.
I pulled up, Dom, you were talking, I started sharing the screen for the GitHub Redwood project. A few things people might not know. You can follow along with all the releases here. There's actually custom settings in Watch. So if you go to custom, if you want to get updates every time there's a release for the project, you can go to custom and follow all the releases that are happening. And this is what Dom was talking about. In this month, there's been 2.20 came out. And those are the updates there. And there's been 2 patch releases. There was actually one that just came out today. Patch releases are typically surprises to us. Those are unplanned. Fixing a bug. This was a really interesting one we were discussing earlier today, where we had a dependency of a dependency of a dependency that we couldn't control and had to get a patch release because it had a breaking change that was undocumented. And that went out today. So that's the releases that have happened. And what Dom was talking about right now, again, we are preparing for V3 to come out. And Dom, this week, V3 RC will be announcing. Is that correct? Hopefully.
Yeah, that's the goal. We still have like a few things we're wrapping up, but I think we could always release an RC. I mean, the whole point of an RC is you can release more of them before the major. So
Right.
I think we could get to it this week, next week, definitely.
Okay, and all of that code that will be in the V3 RC is currently in the main branch of the repo. So that's where that it isn't always the case, but so that's coming out, and there is a way. We'll repeat some of these things, and we won't go to it all the time, but there is a way to try out the anything that's currently in the main branch. I want to just go straight to the packages, but let's go to create. We'll go to core at Redwood. Show you how you can search for it. I normally just type it in Redwood.js, and then there's the core package. So if I click on that, you'll see that we have. Is it not going? There we go. You'll see that there are a lot of versions, and every time something is merged, normally via PR, into the main branch, it releases a canary version. And so here's the RC version. And if you ever want to use the latest code, it's in a canary release, and you would just upgrade Yarn Redwood, upgrade -- tag canary, and it will actually upgrade to these versions right now. So this 2.2.3 canary, effectively, that's close to what will become the V3 RC, and then the V3 RC will become the version 3 release. So that's how we manage the process behind the scenes. But yeah, very cool. And there's a lot. What are the breaking changes coming in V3, Dom? I mean, you've got the better list in your head.
Yeah, I mean, just upgraded to 28, and that, I mean, it was breaking for us, but unless you're using a web dependency, that it's a bit nuanced. Like just now respects the exports fields and package JSONs, which allow you to export one thing for a browser, one thing for a node, which means sometimes it'll be like misresolved. But anyway, that's a bit of an edge case, and we have release notes on how to handle it. The other thing is Prisma 4, and that also brings like a lot of new features, as with just 28. And Prisma 4, there's a few breaking changes in terms of like the schema. They've changed like just a few of the, I think like, I can't remember the specifics right now, but they're documented in the release notes too, but they're not fundamentally breaking. They're just minor changes there too. The cell pre-rendering stuff that's an edge case. Like we have a new file name, for instance, and if you happen to have a file named the same thing, it would be breaking for you the same way, like if a language reserves a new keyword. But the real breaking thing is just that we're now building for 14, not 12. So if you were doing something that you could only do in 12 for some reason, but that's also like super unlikely because we require you to be 14 to use Redwood. I feel like the release is mostly just like a major on principle, I guess, like that it is like fundamentally things are different now. But I'm not sure that there'll be a whole lot for users that they'd have to do to upgrade.
Okay. Trying to think of what else. Maybe one more First off, questions from anybody just about where we're at and what's coming next. If you're watching on YouTube, I am watching the chat comments on YouTube as well, but we're watching the chat here in Zoom. So questions about where we are, just orienting before we dive in. I want to give some time for that. And then lastly, before Dom and I start on the project release board, I want to make sure everyone knows as a baseline, if you go to Redwood JS docs contributing, we're not going to talk much about how to contribute, the mechanics of it. Our assumption during these sessions is that you've gone through the contributing documentation, or you know where it is, and you could dig into the process itself via these docs. So we're not going to dig into these things, but these are available. We have a video recording of the entire workflow of going, forking the project to opening a PR. And there's a lot of great documentation just for specific aspects of contributing itself. So this is available to you. And Les, go ahead. If you've got a question, just chime in by audio. You're welcome to come on a video too. I just didn't want to put anybody in the spot, but Les, go ahead. Thanks for wanting to ask. Hello there.
Hey, how are you doing? So
good.
I'm usually posting GitLab issues and Grizzly Bear on your forums. You've probably seen a lot of that. So I've been asking a question about GraphQL with scalars and expanding that a little bit. I'm working on a project right now where I can load React 3D objects into Redwood. And the interesting thing with, when I generate a post, right, or scaffold a post out based off that schema, when I write my Prisma schema, there is a data type for bytes. So I can upload blobs into Postgres via Prisma on a different application or something like that. But when I try to do that with Redwood and GraphQL and scaffold out, that currently breaks. So this is a question kind of regarding direction. So I'm kind of wondering if, is that happening in the future? Hopefully that there's an expansion on the GraphQL scalars, basically, that they call it. I think the guild kind of runs that type of code. So I can show you my application and see that's kind of working on Redwood, but I hope you, I don't know if that made sense. Sorry, it's a lot.
Yeah, I think parts of it did. We could start. Yeah, happy to start there since you've got a question. We'll make sure we get into the release board itself. Dom, so first off, is there a GitHub issue about this? Because a part of this just workshop we wanted to do itself was like get into issues and then tag some things. There doesn't have to be, Les. I just wanted to, is there a reference we have in it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dom, could you share your screen and could we go there?
Yeah, I have to find it for you really quick.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and it's because we were going to go over, and so let's go into the issues. But easy to get to that.
There's a PR and an issue, I believe.
Oh, great!
This one too. I think this was.
There it is.
Yeah, I did it.
There. Now I've got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Rad. So, okay. So this was the issue. Now, right. So some of the complication that comes with Redwood, and naming this for other people, is that generators, they've got features and support built into them because of what you can generate, which may not be one-to-one with what the Prisma or GraphQL, in this case, Apollo, not Apollo, but the guild's Yoga, GraphQL Yoga, right? Yeah. That might support. So there could be a case where the generator is, I'll call it, out of sync with the features supported by Prisma and or the GraphQL server. And or there could be something that's missing because we haven't done the support for a feature that's available in Yoga or Prisma, and that's the part that's missing. So, in which case there can be a lot of workarounds, like you can just probably add that yourself, which it sounds like what you're doing, but then it'd be better if either the feature was available in Redwood out of the box, or better if the scaffold supported the feature that was available out of the box. So which one is happening here? So does that make sense? Am I kind of laying the landscape? And so that's a complexity of when you want to do first class integration.
I can definitely hack it for myself to work, right? But clearly it would be more beneficial or open source, because what I'm doing with the 3D assets in the game, right, is that I have to add asset over asset, and you end up manually just throwing it to a folder system. You kind of just want to manage that on the software, right? So, and then you have to save all those assets into like a JSON structure to regenerate a world map. So I'm kind of trying to fight my way through to get the generators up to date right now. And it's, I'm behind. I've had another deadline, so I couldn't get this done, but yeah, that's where I'm at with this.
Okay. Yeah, got it. And obviously it's nice when the generators work. We continually have the internal tension of how far are the generators supposed to go? Because coming from a Rails background, which I didn't, generators were really useful to get started and up and running. And then once you understood how the code works, like the generators taught you how to write the code, people relied less and less on the generators. I think the reality is because of GraphQL, like there's just more code that you need to start with. So having a generator lay your foundational boilerplate, people just use that all the time. And then they want to be able to iterate on it. Unless, frankly, we just didn't think of that use case, right? Like it's kind of, we put it out there and people are leaning into it more. So we're learning what people really need as they build apps as we go. So I would just say like 100%. I think this is something we'd love to see in the scaffold generator itself, like have that compatibility out of the box. But yeah, it's probably not something we have time to add, like the core team, like, B3 coming, right? So this is a great place to jump in and help. Like, so what you're doing is awesome. I just want to start with that and totally welcome. Now you said you need some more direction on it. I'm trying to look at the issue here. Is the PR stuck? Do you need some feedback?
Yeah, no, well, yeah, it's probably feedback would be best. Actually, we could just go through it as a refresher. I tried to get deep into the code, but at some point I had to stop because I had a deadline. I had to get a website up for a customer.
Yeah.
So I think if you scroll up a little bit, we tried to make the pull request. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to import the scalars library. So GraphQL, supported by the Guild, has this library that already handled this one-to-one with GraphQL and Prisma, I think. But now the problem is I'm trying to pass it to the resolver handler. I'm really out of my league here. So it's more like it's really hacky and not a good implementation for sure.
Yeah.
But, the library's there. They already handled all the use cases and the data typing, because the original error was an output for a mismatch on the data typing. So there was no data type to detect for bytes. So the library handles that now, but the problem is getting the scaffold working. So I think I'm stuck at the scaffold if I remembered right, but but you answered my question. If you want to move on, it seems like I just need to do this on my own at this point, because the core team's busy, right? So
no, okay, So let me clear up a few things. Like I never want you to feel like you're on your own.
Oh yeah,
because that's actually right. Like this is what the core team. This is exactly what we want to happen. Like you're doing what we want to optimize for, which is like trying to collaborate with us to get in a needed function feature. So again, not looking at the code here, but you are trying. So you're adding that type by default to the GraphQL server Yoga. And then on top of that, you didn't make sure that is now being used and in the scaffold can handle that.
Can handle all the typings.
That's the right way to do it for sure.
Yeah.
If you need more specific help on this, like to get into the code a bit. So yes, like you're gonna have to chip through it, but you're doing it right. Like I guess here's the challenge is we'll keep getting you feedback on these and never be shy about nudging us ever. Right. So one, we want this in. Two, just know that like it is a load. So you have to nudge us sometimes. And like, our turnaround time is days or weeks versus hours. It depends. And so that's just the unfortunate part of the project, but that's fine. Like you're not a bother to us, Les.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and also you probably know, like, I'm sure we could help you more here, but like, it's not like you've got to be an expert to do this stuff. That's also not, yeah, we're not looking at this and be like, oh man, I wish Les was better at this. It's probably vice versa. We probably wish we were better at helping you. But in this case, a good next step here to get feedback more quickly, if you can, drop into the office hours on Discord and talk to David Tierson. So DT runs the Discord office hours every week. And, you know, they're not recorded, they're on Discord, but you can screen share. And he knows GraphQL handlers really well. And or we have a back channel, the guild. So if he would know if we're missing a question, should we bring the guild into it? It's because that might be a thing. We might need to ask them like a better way to handle it in the PR. So he knows where some like limits of those things are. And then he'll be able to spend. So the office hours are meant to spend more of a deep dive on specific things. So that'd be a good context to do that. So I hate to bump you to the next one, but hopefully at least I gave you the like, do it. Like, yes, please.
Yeah.
This would help a lot of
David a little bit. I'm good at nudging. I'm a product manager, so
Okay.
I'm a project owner, so I nudge a lot of devs.
Okay, yeah, rock and roll. And DT is a good expert on this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think too, if you find, my last thought on this is, you will probably find a way forward that's going to be a pattern for other things, other types that aren't supported. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So if you could help document that probably in the PR or even post back to the forums when you're done, just so that like the next time someone comes around and says, hey, this is an unsupported type, like we just want to get them back to this PR and how you resolved it here. That'd be a great way to pay it forward. Well, not that you're not already paying it forward by being an active contributor, but just know that this won't be the last time someone tries to do exactly what you're doing right now, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for your
Thanks,
time.
man.
Appreciate it. All right. Nice to meet you.
You as well.
I'll be in the background for your stream.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Dom, is there anything we should document there? I don't think we discovered anything new, right? But
no, I think like what you said, David, about bumping us is super important because unfortunately sometimes we're just like, we do like drop balls as a core team, like issues go, new things come up, like we have to fix this bug, we have to get this RC out. So sometimes we have like horse blinders on, just like this is the goal and like work towards that. So if it's adding a new feature like this, like definitely don't be afraid to be like the squeaky wheel. And we'll never, like you don't have to feel bad about bothering us about like, you know, especially if it's been like 25 days, please feel free to bump us. And you know, it's one thing to do it like every 5 minutes in Discord or something like that. But you know, we don't want to lose this for this long. That's not
right. Yeah, agreed. Oh, agreed. Yeah, 25 days. Anyway, that's on us. But we're getting better.
No, don't worry about it. I got distracted, so I couldn't bump you if I wanted to.
Okay, understood. Yeah, and it goes both ways too. And we know what it's like, you know, because open source less to be on the other end, right? It's not our project. We're just trying to contribute, and our time goes in and out. So there's empathy both ways. So thank you. Okay, any other questions, comments from people listening in? And I am watching the YouTube chat as well, but just take a pause there. We're going to go to the release board next. So that's just that I take time for a segue. All right, let's do it. We look at this a lot, so it makes a lot of sense to us. But Dom, before we jump into the Help Wanted tab, could you just give the really high level of what's going on here, and maybe actually show people how you got here too? This is our way of working transparently with the community. Not many people know what's going on here, so that's again why we're spending more time making this a public conversation. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if you come to just the Redwood JS repo and then go to the projects tab here, there's only one project, the main project. This will send you up to like the org technically, because projects are only allowed at the org level, but you'll get there nevertheless. And this is the board, like everything is on here, every issue. And like David said, it probably doesn't make a ton of sense, but we try to land you right on the help wanted page so you don't have to make any sense out of it. But if you want to, what you can do is I just hit Command K on the Mac. I guess it'd be, I don't know, it'd be on Windows, but something K to get the command palette up here. You want to switch the layout to board probably, and then probably if you get rid of that filter, you'll see like everything kind of fill out this board. And what you're seeing across here is like the status of things. So we try to keep it like really simple. Ideally things have a status, but if they don't, they're like little notes to ourselves, and they don't really belong on, they're just like keeping information together. But yeah, like new things when they get opened, land in triage, and it's a contributor's or a core team member's responsibility to meet you halfway and like say hi, say thanks, and like see what's up with the issue, if it's a bug or if it's an RFC, give feedback. And yeah, sometimes we ebb and flow a little bit with that in terms of how much time we have, and we always want to give faster responses, but yeah, sometimes if we're busy we'll be a little late, and so we're sorry. But backlog becomes some, not, and then once an issue is triaged, sometimes we can't get to it right away, and it's mostly just transparency. Like we don't want to lead anybody on in terms of like, and it's also communicating that someone else could totally pick this up if they wanted to get it in, like, because we just won't have time right away. And it's not that we don't want to do it, like these MongoDB ones, like of course we want like MongoDB support to be like more integrated, but there's like other things that would have to happen first for it to happen. So that's why they're there. And then, so that means like the to-do in progress needs review columns. These are like where the action's happening, technically speaking, in terms of like these are expected to get in or into main soon, then into a release. And we do some things to keep us like honest, I guess, with that. We have like, we count like, so we have like kind of like a cycle, which is just 2 weeks go by, and then we're in a new cycle, and it's mostly just to keep track of like what happens, like, and how long some issues have been in here. So the ones that have been in like cycles for longer, they'll be like rolled over, and you can see like that here. And it's just to make sure we get what we want done in terms of priorities. So you'd probably just spend your time on like the first couple tabs, and then the rest of the tabs are for like core team members, just to see like what issues are assigned to them. So they just have one place to look. So this is like mine, for instance. And I got the major at the top. So that's, I'll just look at this. And then if I try to get to stuff below, but sometimes, it just doesn't happen. But that's more or less the boards for everyone to see. Yeah.
If you want to see a tab of shame, please don't, but we go to my tab, because let's just say I slowed down in my contributions significantly after V1 got out. Don't do it. But don't. Dom I could tell it's always painful to look at all the things you haven't done. So mine's even worse. There's a lot of automations going on behind the scene, and Dom has done a lot of that. So this is really helpful. It's updated in real time often, if not daily. We check it. And real quick blurb, the core team, who are those people? What magic does it take to become a core team member? It's a lot of people around the world at all kinds of diverse backgrounds of skills and experience that have just been faithful and worked on the project over a longer period of time. And that's not possible for everyone. But I do like to say that anyone who's interested from anywhere to be on the core team, like, that's accessible. And you could talk to me about the path to doing that. But again, it just takes availability over time, and focusing on something in the project that you want to help own and become a leader there. And we have people that are still in school, finishing up their degrees, or we have that are on the core team. We have people that have come out of a boot camp to be on the core team. We have people with a couple decades of software development experience on the core team. So you can imagine they're all working on and taking different responsibilities and areas of ownership. And that's awesome. It's all welcome. We are always looking to grow the core team and help out. So there's no magic behind it. It's just a process that we're trying to make more and more transparent as we go. So that's who the core team people are. All right, Dom, so process wise, here's what we really want to get to in all this. We want you all to know where the action is happening, and it's here on the project boards, and what the process is behind the scenes that we're going through. So we want to make that apparent. And then the goal for this meeting is very much to show you all what issues you could start working on today that need help. So I think the sweet spot there is going to be what are things that are important, have been flagged as important to get in, that for you and wherever you are, like match your interest and or match the skill set you have, at least are accessible that you could learn about how to solve it. And you're going to need help. This will be collaboration with the community and the core team, because you want to orient, you'll have some questions like, where do I start working on that? And all of that is just communication and collaboration. And again, why we're doing these open sessions is we want to make it more apparent that help is wanted, and that we want to collaborate with anyone who's willing to work on things. So those are the goals. And where we're going to go now for the next 25 minutes is just look through some of these issues, pick a few, and try to help outline what the next step would be. Does anyone listening in right now have an issue that they would like to talk about that might be of interest? I'll flip over to the old YouTube chat. I don't see any questions over there. All right. Well, then we'll show you what we do when we come into the project. So we'll start with the Help Wanted tab. And Dom, again, you had some categories within that just to show people, like, you could flip through the whole tab, but are all of these priority high right now? I was guessing you could see anything and everything.
No, you can't. So if I am grouped by priority right now. So I think I filtered on priority 2 to only show the high ones. But if I stop doing that, you'll see there's a lot that aren't, in this case, not super bad, but in this case, we add the high filter just so that you have to do less work if you're like looking at this tab. Medium, there's a chance like a medium issue could be what you want, so maybe we should just leave the filter off. But this is like another view. So the labels you're seeing here are good first issue or help wanted, and so you could see that like this way too. You could go to like the more conventional GitHub tabs to see nearly the same thing. We just have this extra like priority label here on the boards, like we're allowed to add more metadata, so you could see like what would be like a higher value contribution like for the core team. And it's totally not necessary for you to take one of those on, but it's more just like information, that if you like one of these is like and it is like sometimes a little, like a lot of these have to do with like CI or tests, for instance, and it may not directly affect projects. So it's often a little harder to see or like to take those on, or maybe it's just like not as obvious of like a payoff. So maybe we could keep like medium and stuff, or filter that or integrate it better into the way we rank issues.
Yeah, maybe I kind of like it for now. Again, what we're trying to help people do is, instead of getting lost in all of the issues, like narrow in on what are some issues that need help and are high priority, like what's important right now. So Dom, I think that's maybe just showing people that they could dig in further is the way to go. But if people don't have a specific issue they want to take a look at, I mean, there's several here that I think we could grab. And what I like about the CI, tasks, CLI, CI, they can be really contained and highly reproducible, right? Like, so some of these issues, one of the ways people can help often is just helping us come up with a reproduction of an issue. Like that's what some of these things need. But for CI things, it can be really contained. It's not the same as shipping a feature, but it can be a really great entry point to the project. So like the number 57 right there, EDE test directory cleanup, that would be one I would pick that we could do a really quick deep dive on. It's really straightforward. We just don't know what the approach is going to be.
Quick
Yeah,
question on the
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
please. No,
I was
dive
gonna
in.
No, please. Yeah, go ahead.
with the needs reproduction one, is there a label that could potentially be added to these that could, that might be helped, as opposed to like going through each one and trying to I don't know. If there is a label that could be put on there, maybe somebody could, create the reproduction as a step and then fix as a step, right?
Yeah, Brian, that's a great idea. Dom, please chime in here too. One reaction to that is maybe we have a ton of labels. We've gone back and forth through them all. Let me just, here's where we need to do as a core team first, right? So if we did a needs reproduction, we would need to go back through and add that to all these, right? So that'd be one task. Where we're trying to start is committing as a triage team to, at a minimum, adding a comment that says, here's the next step for this issue. And so, Ryan, what the reality might be, there might be a lot of different next steps that could be, needs, reproduction, but we just realize we're not giving people always a breadcrumb, not even breadcrumb. We're not giving people enough direction to even take something a step forward. So because it could be other things beyond, like, what is the next step? That's probably the label, like, there is a next step, right? Like you could find, it could be one of many things. But yes, like that's a great question. I want to just more talk about why we haven't done that yet. But Dom, any thoughts on that too?
Yeah, that's totally valid. Like, it's hard to know. Like, there is a bit of if I could find like let me go to the bugs tab here. Maybe I might have gotten rid of that one, but I could go to an issue and just, so if you see bug needs info, that's usually like don't know if it's a thing. Let me see if I could filter on that and some will come up, but bug needs info. I think it had a slash in it, maybe. Nope. Sorry. This one. Some of these are, usually it means like it hasn't been confirmed. And if it's been confirmed, there's definitely a reproduction. So there's definitely a chance these could be also outdated still, but this is like a good proxy for, this is a great example. This one, I was super late in getting back to, can I have a reproduction please? So I feel bad for the original poster. They assume like they definitely had like a project where like they're getting this error, for instance, and I just can't reproduce it locally. So that's why the label's there. And in this case, this one would probably be super hard to reproduce. So I wouldn't ask anyone to go and do it. But this label might be a good way to filter issues. Sorry, that was way too long.
And I know too, yesterday, I submitted an issue yesterday. It wasn't it was a release idea proposal. And I think I remember not seeing that there was any like in the template for an issue to say like, hey, please put the steps to reproduce as like, one of the prerequisites for it even to be considered is obviously we need to know how to reproduce it right before anything else. So maybe that could be added to the template if it's not already. Like,
it is now. So a lot of these issues were before we were super organized. So now you have to go through a template for a bug. And it will ask you for a repro here. That's actually, yeah. So that's why we made these, is like we would come back and like, I'm gonna have to ask for a reproduction anyway. So I might as well, it's a little more work to do it up front, but more likely you get our help. But yeah, like spot on.
Yeah, totally. I guess I used a different template. I see though that's
Yeah.
what I did too. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So another thing, just FYI, another thing we're doing publicly is we have a monthly Redwood Talks. There's a playlist on our YouTube channel for that as well. And once a month, in the spirit of learning together and learning with the ecosystem of projects, libraries, and companies that Redwood works with, we're inviting our partner companies or people we know that are contributing in the ecosystem to come and give a presentation on something cool, hot, like they're really excited about. And same with the Redwood core team to do a presentation on really experimental things. At the most recent Redwood talk we did, Jason from replay.io gave a presentation about how we can actually get session recording and use that within our issues and reproductions. Basically, you could record the issue and get a full session recording of the console log and all the code that happened. It's going to be rad.
Like a
So I
hot
think,
jar. You mean like a hot jar kind of situation where it replays the user session? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, and you actually like you get the code, which is different. I'm used to full story where it's like a video recording. But yes, and so we want to add this to the process too. So I think, Ryan, this will be a really nice, once we get this at least process ironed out, we'll be able to come back in and go back and say, hey, could someone reproduce this issue like using replay and add it here so that anyone could come and diagnose. Replay.io is pretty rad if anyone hasn't seen it yet. So highly recommend. I just don't know Hotjar as well, but I think it's session replay is the main concept. But anyway, yep. And so he did 20-minute demo, 15-minute demo on that on the last Redwood Talks session. Okay, I'm a tangent of a tangent now, Dom. Let's pick a couple issues. Well, here was the one. Well, again, pause. I love the questions. I just want to keep us moving forward too. But any other questions? Thank you all for just chiming in. Please feel free to keep doing it. Okay, Dom, question on this. Is this even a P1 anymore? Because, gosh, I guess we are still running E2E locally. Maybe this isn't a good one to start with. We just don't do it as much anymore.
We really don't. Unless something's broken, then we do it locally. And then
okay, I think we might want to move to P2, but let me explain what's going on here because I originally filed this one. When you're doing local development and you want to create a PR, you can run everything that is in our framework CI. All of those are local tools as well, right? So build is obvious, test is obvious, but we have the E2E testing that's happening. And when you run that, it creates a temporary directory and fills that temporary directory up with test projects. And what I was doing it so damn much at the time that I would have to go in and clean that thing up. And so I just created this issue to say, man, when we're done running these things locally, we really should just like clean up that temporary directory. Now, on a Mac, the temporary directory is cleaned up every 30 days, I think. I don't know what it is in Windows environment, so maybe it doesn't matter, but I was just getting the gigabytes and thought like, this would be a nice utility app. So I don't know. It's probably not high priority anymore.
No, but like a replay is a good one. Like when I told Jason how to set this all up locally, I had to add at the end, remember to kill all node processes. So it kind of like it comes in and out in terms of like importance. Like if we have to do it, it's not a big deal because we know how awful it can be and how to get around those like edge cases. But like as soon as I have to educate someone else, we're gonna forget like remember to turn off the 80 node processes from debugging CI. Like so
yeah.
It's a bit of a, yeah.
Well, in the spirit of what we're trying to do here and the practice, the habit that we're trying to create is always adding a next step. So ET, what's the last comment I've got here? So I think, and did you create another tracking? Did you create another issue as well?
There was one for, you had this one here. I think they're different, but they're connected.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. This stuff is, and some of that got resolved. ED test directory cleanup. So I guess I would say if like, again, in practice, and we're fumbling through this as we go, right? Like, I think the next step here is we should probably tackle both things, right? Like we need to clean up at the end of our local tests, right? If you do something locally, you should be left with a bunch of remnants of processes and project directories. So let's combine them both into one. And I think the next step is simply we just don't know what's the approach. Like, could someone actually suggest a design or architectural approach to how we would solve this? And we need to talk about that. Is it a script that is a separate script that fires at the end? Because it would detect it. Yeah, I don't know, how would we chain that together, right? Like, if you kill a process, should we actually have another process that's watching that process to know that when X process is killed, it needs to fire another script, right? That gets weird. I don't know.
I guess it
Right.
depends on what's spawning the process, right? Usually they have some sort of a, child destruction.
Yeah, and we have, like, in this, it's actually quite convoluted, Ryan. That's exactly what's going on, but it's like there's a lot of spawning from various things. So maybe that's it. We actually aren't like wrapping everything with the parent, and we end up having a lot of different groups of spawning happening. So yeah, I think that's the next step. We don't even know what an approach would be. All right, we don't have to, that's it. I think I just want to keep adding next steps. Let's grab another one.
The paths one, where was it? I think this one. I tried to do it so I could give some hints.
Okay.
If you think this one's high priority.
Let me, yeah, gosh. 2020, I don't remember 2020. That year is like just blanked out. It's a void. Oh yeah, this would be really helpful. We don't have this yet.
I mean, like,
Oh,
if
man.
this was broken, so many downstream things would break. We have like implicit, like second degree coverage, but yeah, you're right. We still don't have like a test just for this function, which is a little wild.
Okay, I guess so. That's it. Now, okay, so we don't actually show people where this function is, though, right? So, well, we've got paths.ts. Is there no other comments here? Oh wow.
Just me moving it around a whole bunch.
Yeah, now I'm scared because the downstream implications are pretty bad. Why don't you open that file up real quick?
Yeah. So this is in just for context, this is like whenever we want to do something to a project, we need to find the file. Like if set of commands generator scaffolds, we obviously don't want to really worry about that logic. We just want to say like, I want to write to the API file. And this function gives us all the paths. So sorry, I'm going in internal. It's in the internal package. In just the first, it's not very nested here. If you just go to paths.ts and look for get paths, that's the function we're talking about that has no explicit test coverage here. Yeah.
Yep.
So what this would really mean is just like if I go back up the directory structure real quick, there's a test folder here and there is a paths. I think it's paths. Yeah, here we go. Other functions here are tested, resolve file, ensure POSIX paths, but just not get paths. So this would really just amount to adding like another test block here for.
Yeah. So this one feels really accessible to me, right? So we need to tell people exactly what you just said. Like, I think that's the comment. Like in this file, we need to add a test for get paths and really all the, really all the params that we can. I mean, just starting with get paths in general, right? But then making sure that they all, because get paths, okay, so what's happening there? So get paths is, we use it across, as Dom just said, we use it across the CLI to effectively say, hey, let's confirm you're in a Redwood project directory. And then if we need to run something, if we've got a, if we need to execute, let's make sure before we run a process, we're in the right directory before we do that. So that might be because it might be in the API. These are some of the things that are going on behind the scenes when you run Prisma Migrate, for example, right? You need to, wherever you run that command from, the command, it's the process itself needs to execute from the right directory. And if this were to break, which happens because paths, yeah, it would break everything. So odds are it would show up in our CI eventually, but it'd be really annoying to diagnose. So yeah, like, so anything else? I think, Dom, like that's the next step is we just tell people, yes, this is still valid. Yes, it's a P1. We need to add a test to this runner.
Yeah, and I feel a little bad. This one's a little tricky, so I can give some more video hints if we have, but we only have 5 minutes. So is that how you want to spend it? Or
well, but add that to the comment. Like,
okay,
hey, if you're interested in this, like ping Dom and you could create a 5-minute walkthrough to share, right? Okay, you type and I've got a few things to fill in. Things about contributing. Let me demystify the mystical contributing process. It feels amazing to have a PR merged. And it turns out that that's a great way to participate in a project and be a contributor, but it's not the only way. You see that there's a triage tab in the project board. We assign those to core team contributors, because we don't want issues to go unanswered. We want to make sure we're looking at all those, but anyone could help us triage. And it turns out that triaging is a great way to both have a sense for what the state of the project is, but also it's a wonderful way to just participate in contribution. So that's helpful to us, helpful to the project as a whole. So triaging, don't feel like you can't help triage. That's actually a tremendous way to help out, especially when it comes to reproductions. Another way you can help out is reviewing PRs. So just because a PR is open and you might find some stale PRs that the core team hasn't gotten to yet, if you want to take a look and review the code, make any suggestions you see, or just ask questions, that is very welcome. And that helps move things along as well. And it just increases the participation, the feel of participation in the entire community. And never have a disdain for opening a small PR to fix or add a doc. That's always incredibly welcome. So those are some other great ways to contribute. Dom, you type quickly. That's great. Another issue that I would love to see, I wish I was working on already. This is the one for the storybook reload when you change a mock.
Do you see it right here, or is it?
Oh, yeah. It was when you were. I think we were looking at the tab view. There you go. Oh, okay. We've got a reproduction there to show what's happening here. So I'm pretty sure. So probably a step here is we do need to understand how to diagnose this better. Oh, there's a bit more there. Summarizing below. So we have, here's what I think is going on. Redwood, when you use Storybook with Redwood, there's built-in integration. Redwood adds, kind of extends using mock service worker. It extends Storybook so that you can mock cell data and therefore state in Redwood. But if you were to, the first time you actually update a mock file, the whole Storybook process does not do a reload and rebuild, which is what needs to happen. So here's what you do. If you run into this problem and you notice that the mock data is not being taken into effect, you kill the Storybook server and you restart it, and then it's resolved. So my suspicion of what is going on is that the mock files themselves are, I think they're being watched, but I think they just don't trigger an entire rebuild, like a cascade of Storybook rebuilding everything. So it just gets out of sync. And what would need to happen here is that we just make sure, and we watch mock files specifically, that when a mock file gets updated, we need to rebuild everything in Storybook. I think that's it. That's my hypothesis for what needs to happen here. I think why this one hasn't had much traction is it just feels really hairy, because it's like, oh, where do I even start? I'm not sure if I answered that or not. We have some really good experts in access to both the Storybook team as well as Pete. And yeah, so maybe the next, here's the next step here, Dom, and we can wrap this up, is can we extend, this is research, the next step is research. Can we extend or override the Storybook HMR, hot module reload behavior? You know, for example, if a mock file is changed, could we trigger that everything, you know, could we override the default hot module refault behavior to trigger that Storybook needs entirely rebuild? Does that make sense? I'm trying to, we can edit as we go. Anyone else listening in? Like help us, ask me the question so we can help clarify what we're trying to say. Like, does it make sense? Or ask me questions if not. The research step is this. Can we have access to the Storybook hot module reload functionality such that when we need to, we can trigger the right reload or rebuild that we need based on the files that are changed? And again, this is based on an assumption, but if the issue is that I have to stop the Storybook server and restart it to get a mock file to take, then it just seems it's not rebuilding correctly in the case of a mock file being updated.
Yeah, I wonder if there's not like some node mon-ish kind of thing. It might be kind of crazy to do with that, but you know, something just, you know, I'm not sure how to more succinctly say it than what you just did, David.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that's the research. Okay, got it. Yeah, so we're gonna have to understand how Storybook's hot module reload works, right? All right. You know, Dom, we should also put, before you had comment, just add as a note that we talked about this issue live in the August contributors workshop on YouTube. Because we don't have the video link yet, but good. Put August in the August contributors workshop. There you go. Okay. All right, that wraps this time. Well, we didn't exactly find and pair a new issue with the new contributor, but that's okay. That's what we're trying to get to. We want to help you all find a new issue to work on, because we assume you all are here because you would love to help contribute to work on some issues, right? Like, is that true? That's where we want to get to, but hopefully this was helpful. Before we close out, any thoughts on what you'd like to see us do or cover when we do this again next month? Is this helpful? If not, what would you have us change or do differently? And chat comments is great. Feel free to chime in by voice or video if you'd like.
I thought it was real helpful and I appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Thanks for staying the whole hour. I know it's a lot of
Yeah,
internal boring stuff sometimes.
yeah. And please please know that we really appreciate you all and your questions and your comments. The fact that you join us for what we consider, just routine mind-numbing details of like where are things at, what needs to be worked on, what have we dropped the ball on. It's really exciting for us that people want to help out, and it's encouraging that you'd even want to just stick around and listen to us talk through the current existing issues. Yeah, so that is not taken for granted. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, I'll figure out what happened on the old YouTube live stream, but we got this recorded, so it'll be up and posted one way or the other on YouTube. We'll do this again next month. Thank you all. Dom, thank you as always.
Of course. Thanks.